All right, so we just wrapped up this section on what to do as soon as you walk in. We went over a lot of stuff then. Now we're going to go over sort of the next step in the process, which is eye contact. Eye contact is probably the hardest thing to fake, which is why most guys don't even try to do it. You have to actually be confident in order to use eye contact. So what we're going to do is during this section, we're going to go over some exercises and do some drills where you guys are actually going to stand up and do something really uncomfortable. So hope you're okay with that. Even if you're not, I don't care. So there are there's sort of you ever heard the eyes are the window to the soul? Has anyone ever heard that before? Now the reason why they say that is because psychologically we have, like I said before, a lot of micro expressions in our face. And a lot of them, most of them are sort of positioned around your eyes. So whenever you're thinking something and you're looking at somebody, you're typically projecting that thought to them. Now some people they pick up on this things easier than other people do. You can't be like, oh, you're thinking of a black cat right now, even though when I say that, everyone does. But it's not that specific, but you can determine whether or not someone's experiencing some kind of crazy emotion or something that's going well for them, or if they're disappointed or scared or sad or whatever. When you look in different directions, you access different parts of your brain. Who in here knows about eye accessing cues? Who's actually read anything that I've written? So eye accessing cues, I'll go over that a little bit then now since not everyone understands it. So we'll go ahead and talk about that. This is going to be, if you've never heard this before, so probably change the way you look at a lot of stuff. If you have, just bear with me. I'm going to be brief. So let's say that you have, and forgive my eye drawings if these don't look good. There. You have two eyes. Most of us do. Unless you're a potato. Hey. So let's just say that this is kind of like going to be reversed. So let's say this is their right and this is their left. So they're looking at you. This is probably the best way for you to learn eye accessing cues is with the reversed model. Because when someone looks at you, this is their right eye here. Now, I'm going to go into a couple of things here that they're going to sort of fly in the face of some of the other eye accessing cue studies, and I'll tell you why that's the case. Whenever I started breaking into eye accessing cues and recognizing which direction you look in and which part of your brain you're accessing, I started testing this myself to see if I could find a consistent number of times that it's real and it works, and I couldn't. It was kind of split down the middle, where some people were looking to the right to access their memory, and some people were looking to the left to access their memory. And it doesn't really make any sense, or it was kind of all over the board. So rather than kind of just lie to you and tell you who cares and just study anyway and do it the way I tell you, I want you to test the left and right eye accessing cues differently to see which one they're using. And you do that by using what's called control questions or control statements. But I'll get to that in a minute. Typically, I've found for me that the general public looks to the right to access their memory. This is just general. Now, I've heard people say the exact opposite who have been doing this for 10 years. That's great, but it doesn't change the fact that the stuff that I've seen, that I've noticed over time, and that I've tested thousands of times is the right is memory. So I'm going to put memory over here, or what's called recall. So I'll put memory just because it's easier to remember. And the left is typically accessing your creative brain. So I'll put creative over here. So when people look, okay, then we'll go up and down. That's right. Might as well do that. So up is your visual brain, and down is your emotional brain. So the up and down part you can pretty much take to the bank. When someone's looking up, they're almost always accessing their visual brain. When someone's looking down, they're almost always accessing their emotional brain. Looking down is something that you'll see people do when they get nervous. They'll do it whenever they're afraid they're going to get attacked or scared. They'll do it when they're thinking of something that they have an emotional association with. They'll do it whenever they feel pressure. But they also do it when they are extremely happy, when they're excited, things like this. They'll also look down. But more often than not, it's some extreme emotional response when they look down. Now, there are two things that are true that I sort of talk about a lot. One is that if you lead the body, the mind will follow. So if you lead the body, the mind will follow. All right? That means if you can control someone else's or your body, their mental association with those body movements will change the way they think and the way they feel. For example, if I stand up straight, actually, everyone sit up straight in your chairs. The response you have when you sit up straight in your chair is attention, meaning that you become more awake all of a sudden. So what happens is your body actually releases a little bit of adrenaline to keep you up. It's sort of the same response you have when you drink coffee. So you guys are experiencing that right now, right, when you sit up straight. Does everyone kind of feel that for a second? Except DL, who's eating too at the same time. No worries. But do you get that experience where you're like, okay, well now I'm kind of awake, right? That's because you're changing your body response and your mind is having the same kind of reaction. The other thing that's true is if you lead the mind, the body will follow. Meaning that if I can make you feel comfortable, your body will automatically become in that comfortable position. If I make you feel uncomfortable, you automatically shrug your shoulders, get smaller, maybe look down, drop your head. If I make you feel submissive, you'll show all the submissive body language traits, and dominant, the same thing, right? So what's happening whenever you're looking in different directions is something really important. One is that if your mind is sort of going haywire, we know that your body will reflect that almost immediately. We know this intrinsically. We don't know it necessarily consciously. Like we're not thinking, oh, he's looking down, so he's obviously accessing his emotions. We typically don't do that. We typically go, he looks really emotional or sad right now, and we don't know why, right? So it immediately changes your body. This is what body language is. Body language is a direct mind leading the body kind of process, and anchoring is body leading the mind. So body language is on the left and anchoring is on the right. That's where you can have some physical trigger that forces an emotion or some mental state, right? Whenever you lose control of your body, you have to control your mind. And whenever you lose control of your mind, you have to control your body. Meaning that, and most people are excited about this losing control of your mind section because anytime you get nervous or scared or weirded out or anything, you can actually control the way you move your body and that will actually control the way that you feel. One thing to do is, like, for example, the sitting up process. That's sort of an example. Another example that we went over yesterday just briefly in the mastermind was the different directions you look for your eye accessing cues. So if I asked you if you're having, let's imagine that you're having a really hard time with something. Let's say that you just got out of a really intense relationship and you're single, but you're like really torn up about it. My advice typically would be to not look down, to just look up. So if you're going to be sitting down working on a computer, don't put your laptop in your lap. In fact, we have a lot more emotional responses to the computer because most people are looking down whenever they type on it. So people who are on laptops typically have a more emotional experience on the computer, which is random and strange, but it's true. So if you want to keep yourself from being emotional, you look up. When you look up, you can't really access your emotions very easily. In fact, if you look up while you're thinking about how your last relationship ended, which you did an exercise yesterday for, then you will have an almost unemotional response altogether. If you look down when you do it, then you will have an extremely emotional response and sometimes be overwhelmed with emotion. Now, what does this mean? When people are making eye contact with you and you break eye contact, guess what you're doing? You're accessing a different part of your brain because you don't want them to see that. What you're going to do today is we're going to have you experience emotions without looking away. Now, here's what this does. Most people look down because they want to hide. For example, if I want you guys to not see that I'm thinking about something, looking up makes me more vulnerable because I have more of my eyes showing. But looking down makes me feel like you're blocked out. And that's what we do. We typically look down, which accesses our emotions. So when you look at someone and you look down, it's an automatic sign of submission or automatic sign of nervousness when you talk to them. But if you are nervous when you're approaching or talking to a girl, you don't want to make eye contact and look down because it's going to show that you're obviously not pre-selected, which is not something you want to propel, obviously, out. I've trained myself to be very, very good at eye contact. There are times in which it won't have very good eye contact, obviously. It just kind of comes and goes. But anytime I'm dealing with anybody who is a powerful person, I will consistently make very, very, very strong eye contact. And the reason why I do that is because if you don't, you get treaded on almost instantly. And this happens a lot. Again, people do this, they look away or they look down because they're trying to hide something, but when they do that, they become emotional because they always look down. And that ends up compounding and making it worse. So Um, eye contact is the second most powerful indicator of dominance. It's the second most powerful. It's not the most powerful. Most powerful is body language, shoulders, head, things like that, not eyes, specifically or eye contact. And that can come in the form of how long you hold eye contact, with whom you hold eye contact, and where you look afterwards, and whether or not you can express emotion while you're doing it. I have a friend, his name is Paul Janka, and Paul is, I don't even know if I'd call him a dating coach. He's a something coach, attraction coach, I guess. I think he's a great guy. I like him a lot. People give him a really hard time, but I think he's a fantastic guy. And he's one of the most intimidating guys that in my industry. So when people talk to him, they usually get really nervous and scared, and they have like a lot of really interesting responses. He's also really afraid of rapport, so I know that about him, so I make him really nervous a lot. But I'm like a good 1.5 feet shorter than him. He's really powerful. He's got an internal frame, so he usually walks all over people and doesn't really think about it. And the way that I not control him, but control conversation with Paul is eye contact and having extremely strong eye contact. So if you ask him about me, he'll probably tell you that I have like a really powerful gaze or something. You know, he's like really enthralled by my ability to look him in the eyes and not look away, because most people do look away when they look at him. So it's more important that when you're nervous, you actually hold eye contact than it is when you're not nervous. So we're going to go over I'm going to induce nervousness in you guys in a little bit here. So if you're tired, you can be tired now, but you're not going to be in a minute. Of course, dominance is an indication of playing the male gender role. Dominance and submission. Again, let me differentiate dominance and domineering. Dominance is power, internal power. Domineering is external control. So they're completely different things. You don't need to control things externally in order to be dominant. You need to have internal control in order to be dominant. And submission, or being submissive, and subservient are different too. So you got to keep that in mind. Subservience is, again, external submission, or external, being controlled externally, and then submission is an internal trigger. So you want to keep this in mind whenever you're sort of becoming dominant. Most guys think that dominance is controlling things around them. That's not what dominance is. Dominance is controlling yourself. So keep that in mind. Okay. Again, I just wanted to note that eye contact, confidence based on eye contact is extremely accurate. It's very, very, very accurate. And the only way to actually get better at eye contact is to make a lot more of it and to hold it for longer than you think you really should, and feel that discomfort and do it anyway and not look away. So what you're going to do is, well, first off, let me just finish this. Changing your eye contact will actually make you more confident. So after today, you should feel a difference in this, actually after the exercise that we do. Let me just go over real fast what this means. This is your visual creative. People who again, this is typical, it's not always. Visual creative, up and to the left, is where this is sort of the lying quadrant. It's not that accurate. You can't go, they're looking up and to the left, and so they're lying. You can't do that. Some people have a way of recalling things that relies on their creative brain, meaning that if I said, how old are you? Some people will just have a bunch of numbers turning until they look at one that they recognize, and then they go, that one, and they stop. That's a creative response. So you can't really judge that they're telling the truth or not. But if you say, where were you last night? And they say, oh, I went to so-and-so bar, right? And then they look up and to the right when they do that, and then you say, who are you there with? And they look up and to the left to do that. You're probably looking at a liar right now. They're about to lie about what they're about to say to you. Controlling your own eye accessing cues is crucial. Reading other people's is crucial as well. But controlling your own is what we're here for right now. And then, of course, this is visual memory, visual recall. It could be, you gotta test these, obviously. The way to test it, though, is to ask a question that she or he, whoever you're talking to, would have no reason whatsoever to lie about. Like, where'd you grow up? Like, they'll be like, they could be like, oh, I grew up in so and so. Like, what color was your first car? Right? There's no reason to lie about that, so they're probably not going to. And if they look up and to the right, which is this way for me when you're looking at me, so up and to my right, then they're probably recalling. Yeah.
So people who don't know consciously to do this, can they read it subconsciously?
Yes, they can.
Lying or whatever.
Yeah, but it's usually the more drastic stuff like up and down, not left and right. Left and right, people don't typically pick up on. Meaning that if I ask you something like, how do you feel about so-and-so's death, and you look up, my guess is that you're compensating because it really hurts you a lot, or that you don't care at all. You know, if you look down, then I would pick that up. If you ever looked at someone and they're looking down, actually, I'll talk to you right now. I'll give you an example. So if let's see, when I was a kid, we had orange trees in my place that I grew up in, and we used to have orange wars, where we'd take the oranges and we'd throw them at each other, like the rotten ones. All right, so that was a statement. That was a visual thinking statement. Again, it's not very confident because I'm not looking at people. I typically do, so you're going to see some kind of incongruence. But if I say the same thing down here, whenever I was a kid, we had orange trees where I grew up, and we used to have orange wars. We'd pick up the oranges and throw them at each other. You see the difference? Everyone can recognize whenever I'm looking down, it almost feels like you have empathy. And when I look up, it's more like you're observing. You're more removed. This is really powerful. If I'm saying something to you and I want you to connect with me, what am I going to look? Probably down. Down and then at you in the eyes. So we'll get to that in a little bit, though. Down to the right is emotional memory. Down to the left is your creative emotional brain. Now, this can be, this here is a powerful quadrant, typically, your emotional memory. But again, people, you have to test right and left here. So I just wanted to go over this briefly real quick so we can get that out of the way, because I know that it's very, very important, and I've used this. I've based a lot of my power on being able to read people through eye accessing cues and the context of being able to read people this way. I remember talking to a girl years and years and years ago in New York, where she was and I think I've told this story in the Tao of Badass, but where she was eating with me, and she was talking about her job. She was an agent for somebody. She wouldn't tell me who it was. And the Rolling Stones came on. I said I liked them. She looked down, and I was like, that was weird. And then I started singling out members of the band, like talking about them randomly, and then every time I said Mick Jagger, she looked down. And so I kept talking about it until eventually she said, I know Mick Jagger, because he's one of my clients. And I was like, I know, I can tell. And you can gather a lot of information by watching when people access different parts of the brain, not necessarily where they're going. Just knowing that they're emotional doesn't do you much. Doesn't do much for you. You have to know exactly why they are. Okay, so let me see what I got here. All right. When you walk into, let's say, a bar environment for the first time, and we're talking about smiling and pumping state, and you make eye contact with people, the next thing you do after you walk in is you make eye contact. You start looking at people. If you have the ability to get people's attention when you walk in, especially the way that we talked about earlier, in the earlier sort of module that we went over for walking in, then you're going to have a lot greater ability in that moment to project confidence through your eye contact. Now, if you constantly look away whenever you're doing this, then it's not going to work. You're going to project insecurity, and then all the stuff you just did is going to go away. So all the preparation and the walking in, the pumping state, and all that stuff disappears if you don't hold solid eye contact when you walk in. A lot of people will break eye contact to keep the other people from being nervous too. So like people, especially bigger people who are taller or stronger, things like that, tend to break eye contact to make someone who they're talking to feel more comfortable. But you have to see past all those little insecurities that we have, and you have to push through that. You're basically throwing the baby out with the bathwater here. Like you're saying, okay, well, I don't want people to be intimidated by me, but also no one will like me or be attracted to me either, because I'm constantly being submissive. Or I'm going to attract the kinds of women who are attracted to submissive guys, essentially. And that's not what I want to be. So when I start to be dominant, she won't be attracted to that. So let's go into sort of how to use eye contact in a bar. First thing I'm going to say, in general, the first thing I'm going to say is that at nighttime, we're going to go over nighttime first. Most guys go into a bar, like I said earlier, to meet chicks, right? So when they walk into a bar, the first thing they do is they stop and they start looking around for girls to approach, right? Or talk to, or not even to approach, just to look at, really. And then they're their friends to go talk to, usually. You do not want to do this. You don't want to be looking for anything specifically. The only thing you're going to be looking for during this process, when you first walk in, is eyes. The only thing that should exist to you are eyes. You walk in, you see no body, you just see eyes. You don't look anywhere but at people's eyes. If no one's looking at you, you're just looking in a place where their eyes would be. So their heads, their faces, only when you first walk in. For about 10 minutes, that's all you're going to be doing. I used to just imagine that all that people were just floating eyes, and that's all I would look at when I'd walk in. And we also used to take guys to strip clubs, put them in the front of the strip club, right at the bar, right where everyone dances, right at the stage, and then give them 51s, and then talk to the dancer and say, if he looks anywhere but your eyes, tell me. And then have them dance, and the guys would have to keep and hold eye contact the entire time. That's a really difficult, you might imagine, pretty difficult process there. But it's really funny to see a guy sitting looking up, super afraid to look anywhere else. There's this naked woman dancing in front of you, and you can't look at her, just her eyes. But I've never had anybody fail that, though, or mess up. It's when you're putting that kind of pressure, and there's a chick dancing for you. It's easy, and I had to watch them the entire time to make sure he didn't look anywhere. But the point is that a lot of guys will get extremely distracted by, especially by sexual women who are dressing sexy or looking really sexy. They get distracted by body parts they're attracted to, ass and tits, basically. And then so they start to really look around or stop making eye contact, and they just get completely overrun in their minds with sexual tension, and then they can't hold eye contact anymore. So you don't want to do that. You just want to see eyes in the beginning. As you walk past and you're sort of going through the bar walk, which we kind of talked about earlier, this probably isn't going to mean much to you anymore because I'm not explaining it. When you talk about the squiggly cube, when you squiggly cube it, you're going to make sure that you're holding eye contact as you go through this entire process. When you walk in and you go everywhere, your point and the goal is to make eye contact with everyone as you're going by. The only other thing that's important is that if you make eye contact at nighttime, especially in an environment like this, an environment like a bar, for more than 2 seconds, you have to say something. During the daytime, this is not the case. We'll go over that in a second. But at nighttime, if you make and hold eye contact for more than 2 seconds, you have to start talking. Otherwise, it's sort of seen as a sign of nervousness or submission. You don't want to do that. Not that you always have to be dominant, but you definitely don't want to project that you're submissive from the very beginning, because you always attract somebody who's playing the opposite gender role to you. So if dominance is associated with a male gender role, social providing, social protecting, then if you show submission, you're going to be attracting women who are dominant and playing the male gender role by default. You don't want to do that. You probably don't want to do that. I don't know. I don't want to speak for you, but most likely you don't. One of my favorite ways to do this is to do a drive-by. A drive-by is whenever someone is standing, that you walk by, or say that you're going through this bar walk process, and you walk by them and you just say, hey, there you are, I'll be right back. And you don't know who they are, and you just keep walking. So you're going through this process, walking around and going to different parts of the bar and sort of keeping your state up. And as you walk by, you can do any number of drive-bys, oh, there you are, oh, hey, you're cute, I'm going to talk to you in a minute, or don't move, I'll be right back, anything like that. Any sort of response where you can say something then leave and hold eye contact while you do it, you're fine. So if you do hold eye contact for more than 2 seconds, make sure you say something. And if you want to say something and keep walking, that's perfectly fine to do that. If you do this for 10 minutes around the bar or club or wherever you're at, party, wherever you're at, then the second time you come around and walk around and actually try to talk to people, you've already opened up 50% of the room to talk to. They're already comfortable with you. They've already seen you. They've seen you smiling. They've seen you make solid eye contact. You've said something to them and then you left, meaning that there was no pressure involved in the process. You've now created a pretty good environment for going to meet people. So there's earlier I told a story that I probably shouldn't have told, but I did, about me getting really drunk. And that's sort of an exercise that a lot of guys are really afraid to do, which is tell a story of something or write something that they would not, say something they wouldn't normally tell somebody. And if you guys go in your workbooks right now and turn to the next page, you'll see that there's a question. It basically says, what's the one thing that you would, let me see actually see what it says. What's the one thing you're really into that you'd usually keep secret? All right, you can be sexual if you want to, but I would probably not do that if you can help it. I want you guys to think for a minute, take 5 minutes, just think for a moment or something that you wouldn't tell anybody typically. I'll tell you something for me. This is something I never tell anybody. I read a comic book every week, the same comic book, and I wait for it to come out. I'll like sit there and wait for it when it comes out. I do nothing. I read it until I'm done, and then I'm like, oh, that was awesome. And it's a Japanese comic book called Naruto. I read it like every single week, and I don't know how I got into it. I just did. And like when the new one comes out, I just do it. I never tell anybody that because it's totally geeky. And I'm sitting there reading a comic book and being like, I'm nerding out, So I want you to think of something like that. If you have a nerding out experience, I want you to think of it right now and write it down. You already wrote yours down? Okay, think of it and write it down now. And then when you're done, just kind of look up and I'll know that you're finished. So go ahead and do that. I feel like I need to get like music playing during the breaks. Jeopardy music. No. So am I, by the way. So am I. Mm-hmm. That's you in writing or typing. Typing, I'm really bad. You guys at a loss for words, or you already think of it? Something that you're into, you don't normally tell people. What is it? So think about it for a minute. If you're having a hard time, think of something that kind of embarrasses you a little bit. Everyone's like got blocks around this. It's like,
Plus you're looking down.
yep, good. Access emotions.
Just gonna put that out there. Mine's pretty embarrassing.
Is it? Okay. Who's finished already, or is doing it? You. That's it. Everyone else is having a hard time. Jay's done. Is everyone else having a hard time doing this? Can't think of anything? Nothing?
I got something.
What is that? Does that mean you don't want to write it down, or?
It's the really keep secret part.
Okay. Well, I don't know. If you don't want anyone in the whole world to ever know, then I wouldn't write it down.
Yeah, no.
Something that you typically don't say about yourself. Something that's maybe a little bit embarrassing. We'll wait. You okay? You having a hard time? Can you swim? Yeah, you can swim. That may be something. I don't know. If you can't swim. Stuff like that. Who hasn't gotten one down? You haven't. Who hasn't written one down? Just you? You're the only person? Everyone else has got something? Yeah? Yes, no, maybe so? You guys are really active right now. Like, in a food coma for lunch. It's like, me too, and I have to stand up here. It's not fair. Come on. You got something? Okay, you want to write it down? Okay. Here's what I want you to do. There is an almost even number. Brad, will you go in the back corner? I want you to turn to the person next to you. I want everyone to stand up first. Turn to the person next to you. So you guys are all sort of paired off. Stand about 5 feet apart. You guys are pretty much 5 feet apart already. And I want you to... Okay, so the people whoever's the tallest person, everyone's got a pretty drastic difference. Whoever's the tallest person is going to go first. And I want you to look at each other directly in the eyes and say the thing you just wrote down. So go ahead and do that. Tallest person first. As soon as you're done, switch. Do not break eye contact. Hold eye contact. Hold eye contact.
Yeah, I guess I don't have to tell anybody.
All right, cool. You guys good? All right, cool. All right, so this process, you guys can sit down now. This process, however sort of innocent it may seem right now, the people you're with, is extremely powerful because you're expressing something you wouldn't normally say to someone while holding eye contact. This is something you have to be able to do all the time, always. Because when you walk into a place and you're nervous and you don't know who's going to be there, or you don't know how the night's going to go, what do? Automatically look away and don't make eye contact because you feel nervous. There's something that you don't want everyone to find out. There's something that you don't want everyone to see in your eyes. You have to get used to projecting this. You sort of have to be transparent almost all the time because people can see through you anyway. Women can read your mind. I don't think that they can't either because they definitely can. So let's see. Let's talk about during the day a little bit for eye contact. During the day, if you're sort of, let's go through like a walking down the street kind of scenario. If someone's walking toward you, or if people are walking toward you, there's an exercise that I really would like you to do. Over the next week, as you're walking down the street, especially while you're here in town, this can be at daytime or at nighttime. I'd prefer it during the daytime because at nighttime in Vegas, people get wasted and weird. This might backfire. But I want you to walk, as you're walking past people on the sidewalk, I want you to hold and lock eye contact for as long as you possibly can. I don't want you to look away first. I want them to look away first. I want you to lock eye contact when they're at least 15 feet away, 10 to 15 feet away. So like maybe from here to the back row, and just lock it and hold it as I walk past you the whole way through. I'm going to hold it all the way through, just like this. You feel it? Okay. As you get closer, then the sort of nervousness heightens over time, and it'll cause you to do a few things. One is smile, laugh, look down, look away, fumble with something, look on the ground, things like that. What I want you to do is not do any of that stuff. Nothing. Just look at them in the eyes and sort of act. You're acting. You're not going to be doing anything else except staring. If they're not looking at you, then look at where their eyes are. So like if they're looking down, just keep looking at their eyes, even though you're not making eye contact. And as they walk past you, I want you to continue to look. Right? So Brad, do you want to stand up for a second? Kind of show you an example. I get a good-looking man up here. All right, come a little forward. So, hold on. So as we're going to get closer, and I walk past Brad, this would be holding eye contact and turning as we're walking by, right? And I'm going to stop there normally, right? But this is an exercise that I challenge you guys to do. If it's a girl and you walk by and you both hold eye contact, I want you to walk past and then keep looking and then stop and then just stare. And that's it. Until one of you says something or until she keeps going. I don't want you to keep walking. Thanks. I don't want you to keep walking. I want you to stop, and I want you to turn around and stare. Now, this is really, really difficult for a lot of guys to do because the pressure of having someone look at you and not say anything is enormous, enormous. And a guy who can sit in empty space in that sort of void and not break the silence and not break that sort of pressure is extremely attractive and dominant. It's a great quality to have. So we're going to practice that real quick. Here's what I'm going to do. Guys who, whoever you just talked to or looked at last time, I want you to find a new person. So a different person, I don't care who it is. There's going to be an even number, so I'll use you, Brad, if we can do that. And I want you guys to pair up and, again, stand like maybe 10 feet apart, or 10 or 7 feet apart. So go ahead and do that now. Stand up. No. Well, I don't want to because I want the cameras. All right, you guys can come up here. You want to use Janelle? Who's the odd number? 1, 2, 4. Yeah, there's 1, 2, 3.
Where'd you go?
Okay, yeah, we're good. We're good.
Yeah.
All right, so guys can come up here. A couple groups come up here to the front. Slide over a little bit, if you will. No, toward her a little bit. Okay, cool. Here's what I want you to do. We're going to do something called social pressure exercise. You may remember this one. I'm not sure if you do or not. It's very uncomfortable. This social pressure and psychological space exercise is sort of built so that you see and experience the pressure of holding eye contact and the relief of letting go of that psychological space around you. So whenever you meet someone and you talk to them, we have an automatic adjustment of our psychological space, meaning our personal space around us. What we're going to do is we're going to breach that space, and there are only a couple of rules. One is you hold eye contact the whole time. You're looking nowhere else but at their eyes, and that's it. I don't care. I don't care what's happening. The second, there's no laughing at all. You already noticed? The third one is don't say anything at all. Just keep looking. If you do laugh or smile or something, just calm yourself down. You all right? Okay. Calm yourself down and just keep going. Just hang out. So step back. You guys are pretty good, but you guys are a little close. So you guys spread out a little bit. So maybe about a little bit more. If you come out. There we go. All right, here's what you're going to do. You're going to start making eye contact right now. And I want you to stare at them, and I want you to follow my instructions. You're not going to do anything embarrassing. Don't worry about that. I'm not going to make you dance. No laughing. It's already uncomfortable. All right. Hold eye contact. Hold solid eye contact. All right. Now I want you to take in how this feels right now. That's it. And just experience it. You should feel a little bit more comfortable sort of staring here. I know it's a little weird, but it's okay. I want you to take both of you take a very large step forward. Just one. Hold eye contact. Don't look down at the ground. You don't need to look down at the ground while you're walking. Keep looking at their eyes. Now you feel this psychological pressure increasing as you get closer. It's almost as if now you're more vulnerable. You're more open to attack. Things are a little bit more nerve-wracking. I want you to take another step forward right now. I know some small steps that time. Keep holding the eye contact. Don't smile. No talking. Unless you feel nervous and you have to break the tension because you can't do this. Then I guess you can talk. All right, next. This is where it gets really uncomfortable. I want you to put yourself toe to toe with the person you're in front of. The two of you both put your hands behind your back. Don't do that. Don't look away. Now just sit in this space for just a second. When I count to 3, I want you both to turn and face toward me. 1, 2, 3. It's really relaxing now. So do you feel all that pressure disappear? You built up a lot of pressure, and now it's all gone. Now what you did is sort of, in essence, spread out the first 3 seconds of interaction with pretty much any woman you ever meet. There's an intense amount of pressure, and if you stay facing them with your body, typically, and holding that eye contact solid, it can be really nerve-wracking. But look at each other now, shoulder to shoulder. No, don't turn. Just look at each other shoulder to shoulder. Go ahead. Sorry. And you see how now it's not so much pressure. It's really comfortable. It's fine. You're good. You can look away. Okay, so I just wanted to demonstrate that. You guys have a seat now. Thank you very much for that. Owen's awake now, yeah? Did anybody kiss while they were doing that? I don't know if anyone was kissing. Almost. So that's an extremely nerve-wracking experience for most people. I'm going to start saying names. I don't even care. Children. So that psychological space exercise is an experience that you have to feel in a controlled environment before you really understand how much it affects people when you see them. Now, on one hand, I want you to understand how difficult it is to hold eye contact when people get close to you. It's very hard, but that same experience is going to go away over time. You won't be so nervous. When people look at you, it won't matter anymore. But you have to do this consistently with everybody you see and everyone you meet. All right, so now if I walk by you again, I bet you wouldn't laugh. You'd probably just look at me. And I'm not going to challenge you, obviously, but there's a lot of pressure otherwise. Now, just like any other muscle, your social muscle or your social ability is worked out over time. Just like eye contact is the same way. Your ability to make eye contact with somebody is increasing the more you use it, the more you actually do it. And you don't want to go into the gym of eye contact and try to lift the equivalent of 500 pounds. You can't do that. You have to work it up over time. You have to start out with just looking at people for a couple of seconds. And then you're going to then move on to a few seconds, and then move on to 10 seconds. And then, as long as you possibly can, then play a game where they look away first. Yeah?
So how do you make sure you don't look creepy?
Well, one thing you do in order to not look creepy is don't ever lean forward. Creepiness is really indicative of one thing, and that is needy body language. So if I'm staring at you, if I'm doing this, that's not creepy, but doing this is creepy. It's a very subtle difference, This is actually even less creepy because I'm turned sideways. So if you give positive body language, so what I had you guys do was like the hardest thing possible, really, and that is give each other complete positive body language and then step into that pain, that discomfort, and make it worse and make it worse. If you want to keep from coming across as creepy, one thing is that when you make eye contact with somebody, if it's at nighttime, again, if you don't talk after 2 seconds, you're going to come across as creepy. It's always going to happen. You have to talk. If you make eye contact for a couple seconds, and especially if they smile or you smile, you have to walk over. You have to. If you don't want to walk over and talk to her, then don't look at her in the eyes. That means you're not going to be able to do this eye contact exercise or get better at it ever. So you have to be comfortable with that. Hope that makes sense.
I think you're saying if you look at her and she continues to look back at you, you have to go over and say something. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, if you hold eye contact, exactly. If you hold eye contact, then you have to go over. Or you're just a wuss, really. That's really what it looks like. If she looks away and then she looks back and you're still looking at her, yeah, you come across like a stalker. She's like, I can imagine a couple people like this. It's like, so, is anything kind of interesting happen inside you that you realize, like with all that nervousness and with looking at someone in the eyes? Did anyone recognize that they have sort of a pretty difficult time actually holding eye contact with someone, even if it's in a safe environment? Let me see your hands if you did. A few people. Now, if I were to do this exercise and I haven't tried this in a while or hadn't made eye contact with people in a while, then it would be really difficult for me too. So I want you to know that. It's just because I constantly make eye contact with people all the time. And I have to keep on top of it. If you ever stop, your ability starts to drop again. Slowly, over time, it'll start to drop until at the point where you can't make eye contact anymore, and then you have to push through the discomfort and push it back up again and bring it back up to continue.